the emotion code is really where this all started. The emotion code truly is groundbreaking energy healing. Very simple, easy to do, and it's opening people's minds to the possibilities that energy healing has to offer. But the body code really takes it to the next level entirely. And of course, it also includes the emotion code. People often ask, well, what's the difference between the body code and the emotion code? Well, you're going to know by the end of this event. So what is the body code really? Well, it's an ancient idea. And the most ancient idea is that imbalance is really at the root of all of our problems, mental, emotional, and physical. So the body code simply addresses imbalances that are going on in the body. That's all it does. So what I found when I was in practice, now think about this, okay? First of all, I learned that I could ask questions and get answers from my patients' subconscious minds. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But the subconscious mind of each individual is the ultimate source. Each person knows on a subconscious level why they're sick, why they aren't making enough money, why they can't find their soulmate, why they've got these symptoms. It knows. And so I learned early on how to tap into that subconscious mind. And that's what this is all about. It's all about tapping into the subconscious mind and getting the information that is in there. And this is, believe me, the absolute future of healing. So what I found during those years that I was in practice is that people had different kinds of imbalances. And because I used to be a computer programmer, I did that for a living for a while back in the early 80s, I always had a computer right there with me, and I was always trying to categorize and organize the things that I was finding on people. And so I found that there are really 6 different kinds of imbalances. So one of those is energies. Now, trapped emotions are an energy, and this energies category, what I put into that category was all the energies that were in the body that shouldn't be in the body. For example, a trapped emotion, what is it? It's a ball of emotional energy that is stuck in the body, lodged in the body, causing symptoms of various types. And there are other kinds of energies as well. So everything that I found that would fit in that category, I fit into that category. And in this new body code, there are some new things that we've discovered just in the last few years as well. Now, in circuits or systems, this is another category. This has to do with the body's organization. So in other words, your body is very highly organized. It's organized into chakras, for example, the deep energy centers of the body. It's organized into systems, the cardiovascular system, the nervous system, the skeletal system, the muscular system, and so on. I also found during those years, back then I would explain to people that the different organs and glands in the body had the equivalent of what you might refer to as an electrical circuit. And those organs and glands would be connected to certain muscles. So, for example, when I was in practice, well, before I actually went into practice, when I was in the student clinic, when I was in chiropractic school, to give you an idea how this can work, there was a man that came in to see me. He was a patient of mine as a student doctor, and he came in to see me, and he came in every week. Now I needed a certain number of adjustments on people to be able to graduate, and so this guy became a good friend of mine. He came in every week, and he had the same problem. He had pain in the middle of his shoulder blades, and every time that he would come in to see me, I would adjust him, realign his spine. His spine was always out of alignment in that area between his shoulder blades. And as soon as I would adjust him, his discomfort would be gone. He would feel so much better. But then a week later, he'd be back again, and it would all be out of alignment again. And I used to puzzle over this, and I would think, well, what's wrong? Is it this guy, or is it me? Am I not good enough to fix him, or is it him? I don't understand. Why can't I fix this guy? I wanted to just fix him so he didn't have to keep coming back, but I couldn't do it. Later, what I found was that, well, it took several years really before I finally figured out what had been going on with that guy was that he had some kind of an imbalance in his liver. And that liver imbalance was the liver was connected to the muscles in between the shoulder blades. And so that was imbalancing that area constantly, see? And so really what I was doing wasn't really what he really needed. He needed something done with his liver. And then that area would have aligned itself and been okay. And I would have been able to fix him. The same thing applies with many other parts of the body. And this is a big understanding for me. If a patient came in to see me and they had a problem with their right knee, it was probably because their gallbladder was imbalanced in some way. If they had a problem with their left knee, it was probably because they had an imbalance in their left adrenal gland and so on. So there were all these understandings, and I started to figure out how the body has these connections going on between the organs and the glands and the muscles. So when people were coming in to see me for trouble like, for example, low back discomfort, or maybe a herniated disc or something in the low back, after a while, when people like that would come in, I would immediately think of their kidneys, because the kidneys were almost always involved. And by correcting the kidney imbalance, I was able to then balance those muscles that were connected to the kidneys. That realigned things in the spine. And so there's some really interesting understandings that you'll get when you start using the body code that you might not have been aware of before. So those are just some of those things. Now, toxicity, of course, is another huge reason why people are unhealthy, and there's, I think, probably no place on Earth now that you can go where you won't find some kind of toxins in the air, the water, and so on, unfortunately. But if you're toxic, you've got to get rid of those toxins. Pathogens are little infections, viral, bacterial, fungal, mold infections, parasites that get into the body and set up housekeeping. Of course, I found that as a chiropractor, I was working with the spine primarily, but as time went on, I found that really other bones could misalign as well. In fact, other tissues could misalign as well. Other organs could misalign. Really, any tissue can misalign. That's all reflected now in this new body code. It's a fascinating thing. I remember years ago, there was a woman who came to see me when I was in practice, and she'd had a car accident. So she had whiplash. She had this really severe discomfort in her neck, and it went down into her left shoulder. And I worked with her for about a month, realigning her, giving her adjustments, and that discomfort was not going away. It was still like a 9 on a 0 to 10 scale. So I sent her next door to get an MRI scan, where they scan the spine, they scan the bones, and the scan was perfect when it came back. And I was just learning back then to ask the body, ask the subconscious mind questions and get answers. And so I started doing that because I didn't know what else to do. It was weird. It was puzzling to me. Her neck looked perfect on the MRI scan, but she had all this problem. So I started doing some testing and asking questions of her body. And what her subconscious mind gave back to me was that her heart was out of alignment. That in the accident somehow her heart had become misaligned a little bit. So I was able to figure out now what we would do is simply swipe a few times down the governing meridian, which we'll explain, to correct that. But at that time, I was able to make that correction, and instantaneously that discomfort that she'd had for 5 or 6 weeks was gone. So there are more things that are possible, more things that may be going on than what many of us have considered. Now, nutrition or lifestyle is another area where if you're not getting enough nutrients, if you are not getting enough sleep, if your pH is imbalanced, there are a lot of other things that can be going on in that area as well. Now, the more imbalances that an individual has in these 6 areas, the more likely they're going to manifest some kind of symptom. Now, that symptom may be physical. It may be some kind of physical discomfort. It may be that they end up diagnosed with some kind of a disease process. Their symptoms may be emotional, or they may be mental. But the reality of it is all of the problems that we suffer from, all of the symptoms that end up getting created in our bodies are really traceable back to imbalances in these 6 areas. To give you an idea, an example, there was a woman I met once. She spoke to me at the end of a talk that I gave at a hospital in California where I was practicing. I spoke to the fibromyalgia support group. And now fibromyalgia is this problem that people get where they have discomfort in the muscles all over the body, and there's no known cure, no known cause, and so they just have to take medications and so on. It's a miserable kind of a situation. Really, it can be very life-altering. So I spoke for about an hour to this group of about 50 people, and this woman was sitting in the audience, and I noticed that she was crying. She cried the whole way through my talk, just kind of silently crying. And when she was done, or when I was done, she came up to me and was talking to me, and I was having a hard time understanding her because she was kind of sobbing, but through her sobs, I understood that she'd had this problem for 19 years, and it was really severe. And she'd seen, I think, 9 different doctors, and they'd all given her the same advice. They'd all said, well, there's nothing that we can do. All you can do is take these medications, and you're never going to get well. And she said she cried every day because the pain was so severe, but she said she was crying in particular that night at that event because listening to me was the first time that any doctor had ever said that there might be some hope for her to get well. And so she came into my office and we started working with her. Now, what we found with her was kind of typical. She had imbalances in the energy. She had lots of trapped emotions. She had a heart wall. Every organ and every gland in her body was imbalanced. She had toxicity of different types. She had nutrition that she needed. She needed a lot of different nutrients her body was desperate for. She had lots of misalignments going on, and she had a number of different kinds of pathogens living in her body. So imagine, I mean, if you've got all those things going on, how in the world are you going to feel very good? Well, you're not, and that's what was going on with her. So using the body code, we started asking her subconscious mind what the problems were, and we started fixing those problems, and it didn't take long. Within about 2 weeks, she was completely free of her discomfort. All that was left was a little bit of discomfort in her thumb on her right hand. She had some arthritis going on in there, but I mean, imagine, totally changed her life. So as time went on, most of the people that came to see me had been told that there really was no hope for them at all, that Western medicine had nothing to offer. Well, what you have to understand is that Western medicine is great at acute problems, right? I mean, if you get run over by a train and your leg is over there, they can, if you get that leg in your body to the hospital fast enough, they can probably put your leg back on, reattach it. That's unbelievable, right? It's miraculous what they can do. So Western medicine is great at acute problems, but most things aren't acute problems. Most things, like what this woman had been going on for 19 years, medical doctors have surgery that they can do, and sometimes that's necessary. And they have drugs that they can offer, and sometimes those drugs are necessary as well. She'd been trying that. No surgery was really indicated for her, but she'd tried taking all these different medications for 19 years. None of those things had fixed her. Most of the time, medications are just designed to suppress our symptoms. Now, what I want you all to understand is that our symptoms are how the body communicates to us that there is some kind of problem going on. Think about that. So Western medicine, most medications are designed to suppress those symptoms, but in reality, those symptoms are the body's way of telling us that something is wrong. It's a strange phenomenon. It's kind of like the logic is a little bit beyond me. I mean, imagine if you're driving your car down the freeway and the check engine light comes on, and you pull off the road and you pull into a mechanic, and you sit in the waiting room for a while, and eventually he comes out to talk to you, and he says, listen, we found out what the problem was. He said, your check engine light was on, and so we've disconnected your check engine light and you're good to go, no charge. What would you say? What would you think? Well, you know, I'm not a mechanic, but I would certainly think that there had to be some other reason, right? There's got to be some other reason why did the check engine light come on. But yet most of Western medicine, or much of it, is devoted to simply suppressing that check engine light so that you don't feel the migraines anymore, or so that your asthma symptoms can be moderated through the use of medication. So anyway, that's what this is about. The body code is about finding these imbalances in these various different areas and correcting them as rapidly as you can.